Hello, everyone, and welcome to this recording of some of the interesting questions from the first pack assignment. As I said earlier, I went and took a look at some of the questions that you had posted on pack, and I've chosen 10. And what I would like to point out is that these questions will be fair game in the exam. And this is something that you might actually want to watch this video to try and be prepared for the exam. So one of the first questions you asked was, how do you create value while being customer centric? How do you create value while being product centric? And I think the key to all this is the assumption that one has to be customer centric, and that's only one way of looking at things, and you also have product centric. So what you need to understand is that I can be a product centric company, but any new products that I'm creating, I can try to make sure that I create the product that fulfills the needs of the customers. And the needs of the customers could be both the needs that the customer tells you that they have, or those needs where the customer might not know themselves. But again, as I said, you can create value by being product centric if you create those products that will make sure that it fulfills the needs of the customer, and both the said needs, articulated needs, as well as the latent needs the customer does not know exist. So that's how you need to be looking at in terms of customer centricity and product centricity. But you can be product centric but create the right kind of products. Overall, creating customer value is essential in the sales process. So if a customer is hesitant, what ways can we differentiate our marketing strategy to that specific customer? And here, this is a very interesting question, because at the end of the day, you can create value to the customers at different stages in the sales process. So what do I mean by that is, when you are trying to understand the needs of the customer, it's in the initial stage of the sales process. Essentially, you need to tell the customer that they are working with the right partner. That is, you are not only a trustworthy salesperson, but you also work for an organization that is trustworthy. Now, as the sale progresses, once you've earned the trust where you can actually go for repeat calls, then the next thing is you have to be seen as a person who is pretty knowledgeable about the situation, not only of your products, but also of the customer situation. And that is, again, another way of gaining trust, where now you've had the initial trust, but now you have to prove that you are the right person and you are the right organization to fulfill the needs of the customers, especially when they share with you their needs. And that is something that you do. And then later on, by the way you handle the objections, you can also try to make sure that you are providing the customers with the right kind of information to help them make the right choice. And then once you close the deal, you can always go back and tell the customer that they made the right choice. Now, of course, what I'm saying out here is that the salesperson is involved in the sales process along the way. Now, in terms of marketing strategy, and that's pretty much where one of the things we did not talk about in class as much, is that one way by which you can actually make sure that the customer does not feel hesitant is by leveraging your brand. As I said earlier in class, that part of the marketing is, if you talk about the 4 P's of marketing: product, place, price, promotion, and brand would usually fall into the promotion part. Having a very strong brand would actually tell the customer that, you know what, yeah, maybe as a salesperson, you still have to earn the trust. But if you are a big brand to work with, then the brand has been around for so long, and the brand has been around because of the fact that they have understood the needs of the different kind of customers and fulfilled it, and have earned the trust of not just that particular customer, but also the whole segment and the whole market. So branding is one way by which you can try and differentiate. And as I said earlier, if you consider salespeople as part of marketing, in different steps of the sales process, your salespeople can do different things to try to earn the trust. In the future, will e-commerce decrease customer loyalty? This is a very interesting question, where a lot of people say that, well, if a customer buys something through e-commerce and they feel that they get the value that they want, I think it's just going to increase loyalty. Now, the question is that what is going to be the role of the salesperson? That is interesting. So what kind of products typically go into e-commerce? For starters, if you are selling a product that does not have too much differentiation, that is, it's seen as a commodity product, then you will see that it might actually make more sense for you to use e-commerce, because using your salespeople to go sell a product where the customer already knows what they're getting is actually a waste of your salespeople's time, efforts, and money. So if you understand exactly what the customer is looking for, and if you know that what you're selling is a commodity product where the customer is looking for a low price, by reducing the sales visit, you're reducing your cost to pay for the salesperson or pay for the sales visit, which you can then pass on to the customer. So which means that if you're selling a commodity product, or if you're selling a product that the customer knows what value they're looking for, e-commerce might actually fulfill their need for a lower price. And if you're fulfilling those needs, chances are the customers are going to be satisfied and they will be loyal to you as well. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And on the other hand, you could also use e-commerce, especially when you're selling something complex for the first time. But let's say the customer now spends a lot of time with the salesperson, tries to understand the value. And once the salesperson has demonstrated that they are the best partner and their company has the best offering, then you don't need to have the salesperson visiting the same customer again and again to sell the same thing. So what you'll see is that when there is a lot of repeat purchases, and that repeat purchase need not be a simple product, could also be a complex product, but as long as the customer does not make any change to it, then e-commerce might actually give rise to more customer loyalty. Now, one of the key things you have to keep in mind is, especially when you're talking to your existing customers who are buying more expensive products but are buying it online, you shouldn't become complacent and say e-commerce is the only way to touch a customer. You might have to visit them periodically and check whether the needs of the customers are changing. Now, you would not do this, especially if you're selling a product that is a commodity, that is, no amount of you selling can make the customer see the value. The customer only wants low price. Then it does not make sense that e-commerce might be the best way forward. The next question. Is customer or product centricity more important in B2B than in B2C? And I think the answer is no. You have to be customer centric in both B2B and B2C. The idea is, does not matter if you're a B2B customer or a B2C customer, your needs have to be met. And as a supplier that makes this, you have to understand both the needs that the customer says and the customer does not even know. So customer centricity is going to be important. And as I said earlier, product centricity again will work to help meet the needs of the customers if you create the products based on your understanding the needs of the customers. How much does brand awareness impact consumers' decision making? This is an excellent question. And I said earlier, as I said, when you are going out there, let's say, for example, some of you graduate and you go on and you are going to be selling, and that's your first job. And essentially what you see is that, wait a minute, nobody knows about me. But then if you happen to work for a company that is extremely well known in the market, then that brand awareness might actually help you get a foot in the door, even though you do not necessarily have any credibility yet. So brand awareness and having a strong brand is going to help you a lot in getting a foot in the door. It is also going to help you in the different stages of the sales process to make sure that the customer says at any point in time, wait a minute, is this statement made by the salesperson, is it true or not? But if he or she works for a trustworthy brand, then chances are that they know what they're talking about. And last but not the least, brand awareness is going to be extremely critical when you have to justify your price. When all things are being equal, when the product that you make is copied by the competition, when the services that you offer can also be copied by the competition, but the only thing that you cannot copy is the trust that your brand has built. So essentially, if that is the case, your point of differentiation could be because of the strength of your brand, and that is what you should be able to leverage when you take a look at when the customer makes the decision. Okay. How might marketing and salespeople show other segments of a business that marketing is vital in order to increase revenue? Well, to be honest, it's not that marketing and salespeople need to show it to different customers, but the very fact that if I know exactly that different segments of customers have different needs, I can come up with more targeted marketing strategies towards each of the customer segments that fulfills their needs. I can help prepare my salespeople to be able to customize their offering according to the specific needs of the customer segments. I can come in and even make sure that the offering that I provide, including the price, will deliver the value for that particular customer segment. And the idea is that this is how you try and make sure that the more you know the segments, the more you can actually show value for the customer. Do you think it is easier to improve the customer's experience when selling a product or a service? Why? The answer to this, if you were to ask me, is that even when I sell a product, there is always a component of service. What do I mean by that? Is imagine the last time you went to Walmart and bought something. So you bought a particular product, but you were still evaluating your overall experience by, okay, is the Walmart close to you, yes or no? When you went in there, do they have sufficient parking, yes or no? So yes, you're going to buy a product, but you're also evaluating the overall experience that includes parking, how far away from the how far away from the parking lot is the entrance to the Walmart. Then, for example, if I go in there, is it easy for you to find the particular product? Are there any promotional coupons there? So even though you're going to buy a product, there's a whole lot of services that will go on to provide a customer experience. So in my opinion, that even though I'm selling a product, I am actually selling an overall service and a solution that is part of the customer experience. What are the ways a company can reduce complacency attitude when its own sales force has become complacent? Now, this is a very, very interesting point, and you see a lot of things. Complacency comes in, especially when you are a monopoly. What does a monopoly mean? There's not too much competition. And you know that even without putting any effort, the customer is going to try and give you the business. Now, the problem here is when you're in a monopoly, not only do you become complacent, you may go to the point where you have two options in how you treat your customers. You know that the customer does not have a choice. So either you can treat the customer as a hostage and make them feel, oh my God, you know what? You guys don't have a choice, so you have to work with me. Or you can go the extra mile to tell the customer how much you appreciate doing business with them, so that when you appreciate doing business with them, when they see that value, chances are that they're going to look at it as, you know what, sure, I don't have too many options, but man, do they treat me well. So I think that is what you should try and do. And most of the time, complacency sets in when you're seen as a monopoly, or in your territory, there is not too many good competitors. And sometimes you may just get plain lazy. Now, that's a different story. But complacency in terms of with your customers is pretty much going to happen when you're a monopoly. And of course, there could be situations where you think you know what the customers want, but that could be more individual salesperson specific than the whole sales organization. What is the best approach to add value to your product or service to enhance its value? As I said earlier, first of all, is when I'm selling a product, the Walmart example I gave you before is you provide extra service on top of your product to make and create value for the customer. But sometimes the product that you create and the service that you provide. So for example, if I want to buy Coca-Cola and I'm going to Walmart, that the product and the service, you're going to get the same product at Meijer. And Meijer is maybe more or less going to have the same kind of offering to you. But then you could say, wait a minute, but the approach of Walmart could be quite different, where they're seen as a low-cost leader, whereas Meijer is seen as value for money. Then the brand positioning is where you can try and differentiate your value to the customer. So again, the best way to differentiate your product is to provide more services. And similarly, if your products and services can be copied by the competition, then providing the extra brand and the worth of your brand might be creating value for the customer. So in class, we discussed a little bit about sales and marketing. How do sales and marketing go hand to hand in business? How do they differ? To be honest, in most B2B companies, sales and marketing do not go hand in hand. Marketing usually, and again, I should be very careful when I say this, for the most part, marketing still sit behind desks and most of the time do market research without necessarily sometimes having an idea about what is really happening during a sales visit and what are the exact needs of the customers. Please note that when I say this, I am just making a blanket statement. In different industries, it's going to be different. But the idea typically people have is that marketing is much more sitting behind a desk and doing a lot of the analysis. Marketing is also doing long-term focus. That is, if I create a marketing campaign now, I may be reaping the rewards of it a lot later. Whereas sales, on the other hand, is something where you have to be in front of the customers, you have to be in the trenches, and your effort is immediately going to pay off. So essentially, sales forces are much more short-term focused, whereas marketing is long-term focused. Marketing tends to be a lot more theoretical or making assumptions, whereas salespeople get to be too much in the trenches, and sometimes they do not think strategically like marketers should. So you see all of these different issues go together, but in an ideal organization, sales has to go visit customers, go back to the marketing team and provide feedback to the marketers. And when marketers come up with marketing campaigns, they have to go back to the salespeople. And once they go back to the salespeople, they have to go in out there and make sure that they create value for the customers as well. So that concludes the 10 questions that are pretty interesting. And what we will do in class when we come back on Tuesday is to also discuss the go-to-market strategy as well. Thank you.